and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
Breaking news, Trump advisor Stephen Miller has just now tested positive for coronavirus. He is in quarantine, and this is a developing story because he is now the 18th person who works in the Trump White House or campaign to test positive. Miller also married to the aide to the vice president, Katie Miller. She had contracted the virus earlier this year.
The COVID outbreak in the White House and highest levels of our national government keeps spreading, and now it reached the Pentagon, and there's a late breaker. NBC News confirms some of America's top generals are self-quarantining after the Coast Guard's second in command tested positive. Defense officials tell NBC News that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the heads of the Air Force and Space Force are all quarantining because they, too, may have been exposed. NBC News confirms a fourth White House press office staffer and one of the president's military valets have also tested positive. President Trump is still infected, but says he plans to debate Joe Biden next week, even though he might still be contagious. According to the CDC, somebody infected with COVID can spread the virus for up to 20 days after first showing symptoms. The president's physician insists he did not show any symptoms today, after he left Walter Reed just last night. And moments ago, another positive COVID test in the West Wing. Hallie Jackson with that live at the White House. Hallie?
Well, it's a name, Shep, that people will recognize. Stephen Miller, one of the president's closest aides, somebody who has been with him for years. He is now confirming on the record that he has tested positive for COVID. Miller says that he tested negative for the last 5 days. He's been self-isolating, and then up until yesterday, he had those negative tests. It switched over, obviously, to positive today. He is now in quarantine. Our team has looked at this. So Miller travels with the president often, and it looks like the last time that Miller was with the president, and frankly with Hope Hicks for that matter, was the same night. It was last Wednesday. You'll remember, Shep, that was the night of that Minnesota rally that we were talking about, the same night that Hicks quarantined herself on the flight home on Air Force One because she started feeling sick, hadn't tested positive yet at that point so far as we know. So this is significant as it is not just, we've been talking about White House press staffers, we've been talking about the military valet. This is somebody who has had direct contact with the president, somebody who the president is around often, based on our reporting, involved tangentially in debate prep, speech writing. He has a hand in a lot of facets of what the president does. We should note, Shep, that his wife, Katie Miller, also works for the Trump administration. She is the communications director for Vice President Mike Pence. She actually already tested positive for the coronavirus back in May. She was one of the first White House officials when this pandemic started to come down with the coronavirus. So this is all coming into us just in the last couple of minutes, Shep, but that's the latest from here at the White House.
As for the president, we've seen the tweets today, Hallie, but any official business? Has he been up and about? Do we know?
The White House says he's working. We know he's been on phone calls today. I think he talked already about him pulling out of those stimulus negotiations. It's our reporting based on folks familiar with that phone call that he was on the phone with Secretary Mnuchin, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, and others. So we know he's been kind of doing that. He's been working Twitter, as he often does, trying to sort of tell the American people that he's still visible and he's still out there. But there are some questions now about what he's going to do next, because he also tweeted something interesting, Shep, that he wants to go to the next presidential debate, which is in Miami next week. Now, that is 9 days from now. And if you look at the start of the president's symptoms, which we believe was Thursday, based on what his doctors say, that is about 14 days from the onset of symptoms. What does the CDC say? Well, they say somebody who's infected with COVID may potentially still be contagious up to 20 days after the start of symptoms, just depending on how severe they are. The president's doctors say they're monitoring his viral load, right, which is doctor speak for they're checking on how much virus he's still putting out there to people, and should have a determination. But right now the timeline is unclear as to when the president will be able to actually get out of the White House and go do the travel that he is so eager to do.
Hallie, last night you said the nerves were kind of on edge at the White House and that the place was mostly empty. What about tonight?
emptier, even more ghost townier, Shep. I mean, I'm walking through there. Even the press at this point, we have just candidly pulled back out of some of these spaces just for our own safety. We're wearing masks everywhere we go, except for during these live shots with you. I have mine right here that I'll put on as soon as we're done. Most people are working from home. There are a couple of people here, as we talked about, who have sort of essential, they're deemed essential workers, so they're coming in to conduct business, but mostly working on that cell phone, text and email, Shep, as usual.
Yep. NBC's chief White House correspondent Hallie Jackson on the North Lawn.